Last fall, I was thinking about doing some kind of road trip to get in my sort of last hurrah, really nice riding before the winter came. And a stretch came, I think about the third week of October where the weather got really, really nice. So I just said, let's do it. So I got out the credit card, booked a couple of nights in Collingwood, Ontario, and set out on a 3-day road trip through sort of south central Ontario. The intent behind it was to tackle 3 new trails I hadn't done before, but that had been on my list to do for a while. I was thinking about things like maybe an East Coast trip. I had been down the East Coast a few times before and done some amazing trails out there, so I do hope to get down there. And at that time, I wasn't doing the YouTube channel, so I didn't record some of the amazing trails down there. So I hope to get to that sometime and bring that to you. I thought about perhaps, maybe Quebec. I'd also been thinking about getting down to the States before all hell broke loose and doing some rides maybe in like Vermont or the Adirondacks that have some nice trails. So what I decided on was actually just a 3-day road trip sort of through south central Ontario, taking on 3 new rides I hadn't done before but I had been interested in 3 days. So I booked a 2-night at a cheap hotel in Collingwood, Ontario, and set off to tackle on day 1 the Rouge National Park, which is sort of in north of Oshawa in the Greater Toronto area, the Georgian Trail in Collingwood, Ontario, and finally the Caledon Trailway in Caledon, Ontario. So as I mentioned, I hadn't done any of these trails before. Some of the impetus actually came for 2 of the rides, the Georgian Trail and the Caledon Trail, was through a YouTuber that I follow, Andrew at the Cardiac Cyclist. Had some videos really good on those trails, so I've been interested in that for a little while. So I actually did reach out to him and a couple other people that I know through my YouTube channel to kind of get some intel on these before I tackled them. So on day 1, I headed out fairly early. I packed up the bike and started heading out for about the 2.5-hour drive from Kingston, Ontario, where I live, to near Uxbridge, north of Oshawa, and made my way up to the Rouge National Park. Now, it's a huge park. It's one of the biggest urban national parks in North America. So I got some intel from someone who follows the channel, Owen, who lives in that area and does the trail dozens of times per year. So that's one nice thing about having a community like this, is you can actually share information on some pretty cool trails. And I hope that you find this helpful and that you also make some comments about, what you think of these trails and trails you would like to do as well. I'd also seen a couple of YouTube videos as I began researching the Rouge National Park that piqued my interest on this trail, and it looked really, really pretty, so I thought I'd give it a try. So as I mentioned, I reached out to Owen, who lives in that area, to get some intel, and he actually shared a GPX file I could put on my Garmin of the route he suggested, starting in the Glasgow trailhead, which was great because once I found it, it was nice free parking lot, had a bathroom, and which is always important for middle-aged cyclists, and a great spot with had lots of signage and various routes you could do. So I really enjoyed starting there. The morning was actually a bit cooler than I thought. I guess, again, the weather was really, really nice for sort of the third week of October, but in the mornings, of course, it's still pretty cool. So first part of that ride, I was actually a little bit cool. It didn't take long though to warm up. This trail actually is a lot of fun, especially the northern part. You're going through some really nice forests. There are some up and down, some short, steep hills of like 8-10%. So keeps it interesting. Some winds, you go curvy through some of these sections, which really, really made it for a really fun ride. It didn't take long for me to begin heating up. This trail is very popular, and being close to the Greater Toronto area, again, it takes maybe a half hour to get there at the most from Oshawa. It's very popular for cyclists and people who like to walk. It was very busy when I went. So once I got to Collingwood and settled into my hotel and took my bike up and got everything unpacked, I did some Googling to kind of find a nice place to eat, and luckily there was a fairly highly regarded brewery called North Winds Brewery, about a 2-minute walk from the hotel. So I showered up, got ready, and really, really enjoyed my my night there. Just had a nice meal and a flight of beers, and it kind of dawned on me just how good it felt to get away after I've had a fairly great year, lots of things going on, but there's also a lot of other things going on personally. So it was really, really super nice to kind of get away, just be on my own for a little while and just, take on some new adventures. I tend to think a lot about doing those and need to do a little better job of doing things like this and just picking up and going and enjoying those sorts of experiences while you can. So after my meal, I really enjoyed just walking around the waterfront trail, which is very close again to the hotel. I just didn't know that. I just ended up booking this hotel because it was a good price and ended up being in a really nice location. It was very close to the starting point of where I was going to take off on the Georgian Trail on day 2. So waking up early after a subpar sleep, after my day 1 adventures, I Googled and found there was a Starbucks very close by, so I got up and walked over early, which I often spend a fair bit of time in cafes, and started working a little bit on some of the footage from the Rouge Park before I took off. It was still dark at that point in time to get out on the bike ride, but it gave me a chance to kind of get settled. So after that, I headed back and packed up for day 2 and a really great adventure on the Georgian Trail. So from the hotel, it was a short ride on my bike to get to the starting point of the Georgian Trail. I wanted to start and do this trail in its entirety on this day. So I was able to get there and cycle along some beautiful condos right there with views right on the water. You can see here the Collingwood grain elevator in the distance. It was another beautiful day of sunny and mild weather awaited me as I worked my way to my first stop in Craigleith. I really enjoyed my time in Thornbury, highlighted by a stop at this really cool bridge, which has really nice views of the bay, folks fishing below, and a huge bird floating around. However, first I needed to continue west to explore this entire trail and work my way along some other nice town in Meaford at the terminus of the western section of this trail. Along the way, I had great views of the Blue Mountains to my left, some nice wooded areas with leaves as I cycled through there with a canopy of multicolored leaves. Was really making me feel fortunate and happy with my decision to do this trip. Owen had told me about the Scarecrow Fall Festival in Meaford, so I ended up checking that out, going through the town. I also stopped at the marina and had a nice time there, getting some nice pictures and views of the South Georgian Bay. So after that, I made my way back towards Collingwood and stopped this time in Thornbury at the Thornbury Cider Company. This was the highlight of the day. I really, really enjoyed it. By that time, I'd done around 50 kilometers, and like I said, I wasn't feeling overly energetic, so the stop here felt really good. It's a really nice patio to sit on, and I had a really, really nice meal, some fantastic sweet potato fries, and a nice flight of beers. After this, I'll admit the last 20 kilometers back to Collingwood was a bit of a slog. I think part of it due to just, being fatigued. Probably the flight of beers didn't help much either. After settling back in the hotel, having a shower, I decided I wanted to explore the town of Collingwood, the main streets. I'd heard from lots of people how pretty it was. So I went for a walk along the waterfront trail again and made my way back to downtown, walked for a few kilometers, checked out the quaint little town, some of the features of it, but really didn't find any place to eat, so I decided to head back to near the hotel and checked out the Northwinds Brewery for day 2. Had a meal again and a flight of beers. So before you judge me too hard on all these beers I've been drinking, it's like that is probably the equivalent of about 6 months of beer that I would drink normally. So on day 3, the last day of my 3-day road trip, I was up early again, so I decided to pack up a bit early, head out for about the 1-hour drive from where I was to Caledon East, where I was going to start my ride, and decided to pick up one of my guilty pleasures, which again is a fair rarity, McDonald's breakfast. So along with my McDonald's breakfast, I headed towards Caledon along this really beautiful, quiet, hilly drive to get to Caledon East. So once again, I was inspired to do this video through Andrew, the cardiac cyclist. So he provided me some intel and as well. I decided not to do this whole trail. It's about a 35-kilometer trail one way. So to do the whole thing, it would have been again an out and back, which is kind of the challenge sometimes with these rail trails. Would have been a 70-kilometer day. Not feeling particularly energetic, I kind of copped out and did about half of it. So he said to start in the Caledon East Community Center. However, I put the wrong place into my GPS. There is another community center, I think, in Caledon, which is further south, so I ended up having to get there. although it worked okay because I need to go to the bathroom. So they had a nice community center there. And before figuring out this isn't the right spot, 'cause I couldn't find any trail on Google near there. So that would only be the first of 2 mishaps to start this day. I was also in communication with the aforementioned Owen, who helped me with the Rouge Park, because he'd just been there, I believe, the day before to do this trail, and they'd done it a few times. And he'd mentioned and sent me a note in the morning, which I didn't really pay that much attention to because I was kind of in the midst of getting going and anxious to get going, and talking about that there's a bit of a detour. And he actually tried to send me a file, and I just didn't really get to it. So, after finding my way to the trail, I ended up heading out in the trail. And as you can see here, I fairly quickly ran into a closure on the trail, so which brought about a series of detours, which Owen was trying to warn me about, that ended up adding a few kilometers to my ride, which is all well and good. Is actually, you see some of the footage here. I was kind of on the road for a while, but when I got to this one road, I forget the name of the road, which I would have gone left, I would have got to the trail fairly quickly. I ended up going right for some reason. I couldn't quite figure out which direction I was on Google Maps, and found another road, quite hilly, and made my way back after a few kilometers to meet up with the trail. So it was no real harm, but it was a little bit of a mishap that kind of threw a little bit of a curveball into my day to get started. So again, this trail was something I was really curious, given the really high recommendations I'd heard from Andrew, and some of the footage was really good, and really, it's a really fantastic trail, really well used, fantastic shape, really, really good. I recommend you check out the full video on that from his channel as well as mine. I really enjoyed it. After making my way to Terracotta at the one end of the trail, where it intersects with the Bruce hiking trail, I made my way back, and fairly close to that as I took a look at the Cheltenham brickworks, which you see here, which is sort of a defunct brickworks. It's kind of cool to look at. And then I made my way back to the Coy Wolf Cafe, which is in Inglewood, which is recommended by both Andrew and Owen, which is a really nice cafe. It's right off of the trail, so it's very popular with cyclists and trail users. Had a really nice time there. Enjoyed the break, enjoyed the coffee, and I really enjoyed the butter tarts. Working my way back, I was really enjoying the tree cover on this beautiful, unseasonably warm day. The colors were popping. It was really, really nice. Due to the detour mishap earlier, I was able to hit on a part of the trail I'd missed before, and I really enjoyed this section before carrying on back to my car to wrap up. Having thought about it now, I kind of wish I would have just sucked it up and done the whole trail and done 70 kilometers. I certainly know I'm capable of it. I think in my anxiety of worrying of getting back to home and the traffic and all the rest of it, I decided to cop out. But when I get back to that area, I'm definitely going to do the full trail. So there you have it for my little 3-day adventure through South Central Ontario, tackling some new trails and new adventures that I really wanted to do. It's really getting me excited about what's to come in 2025. How do you feel? What do you think? Are you getting excited about getting on, tackling some new trails, some new adventures this year? I hope you enjoy the content. If you do enjoy these kind of videos and the kind of adventures that I go on, I really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel and like the video. It really helps me to kind of keep the channel relevant and keep it sharing this information of some of these really cool places that are fantastic to ride a bike, and these really nice towns that are really nice to explore as well.